Arian, last time I saw you was on MTV's Champs vs. Stars. You were in elimination against Casper.
Yeah.
But at this point, because, you know, the show unraveled really, really quickly for you, didn't it?
Yeah.
What were you thinking when you realised you were going into elimination straight out the gate, like first show? What were you thinking?
I remember thinking like the other side wanted me not to be there.
Right.
And so it kind of, I didn't really have like a competitive like niche in me to fight that. I was just like, because I was there for charity. I wasn't trying to show I was better than a CT or something. You know what I mean? So it was just like I was just there for charity, and I was gonna do what I could. But if I won, I was kind of very indifferent about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we see you go into that elimination against Casper. Now, we know Casper, despite being a dancer, is super, super athletic.
Super athletic.
They literally just gave you 2 bats and a board and was just like, smash away, boys. First person to knock this thing off the top of another thing wins.
Yeah.
And you literally went to task.
Yeah.
Like, that was weirdly like a really strenuous kind of activity. Talk me through it.
Super. It was like we were hitting this metal star. I think it was a star. Yeah, we were hitting like this metal star, and I just remember it stinging the hands. It was just like stinging. It was a metal bat too, so the vibrations were strong in the hands for sure. But I remember I got off to like a really good start, but I didn't know how much energy I was gonna have to exert in order to get it off, and how tight it was gonna get the more closer to the end you got. And so I overshot my load. I did way too much at first. And so by the time like I was like 3/4 through, I looked at him, I was like, I'm done.
You were done. Like, was it energy system? Were you just like physically spent, like done?
Yeah, it was.
Because your hands were ripped as well.
Yeah, I tore some skin off. I mean, you don't notice that just because you swing, your adrenaline's pumping. But I think it was it was a endurance test. But looking back at it, you know that. But like in the moment, you're like, I gotta get this. There's a little screw top, so it's like I gotta go. So you don't really have a strategy. You don't know how. You don't get to push and pull it before to see how much, like I said, energy you're gonna have to exude. So I didn't really have a game plan. Yeah.
Deep. And so deep. So at that particular moment, you effectively lost the elimination to Casper, and your team asked you whether they wanted to keep you or send you home.
Right.
And they chose goodbye.
Right.
What were you thinking at that point?
I thought it was kind of weak, but I understood the game, right? So I'm like, I don't hold any personal vendetta against anybody, but it was obvious from the onset I was like a target. So, but I didn't know, because I didn't really understand the game until I got put in elimination. Then I was like, okay, I get the game. It's a game. You forget it's a game because you're dealing with people, and that's kind of the struggle I had. Is like you're dealing with humans who are manipulating conversations in order to strategize, and so I didn't really understand how that worked. Yeah.
But you learned very quickly, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was the first one out.
For that experience, as short as it was, how do you think you'd have fared had you have been able to stay in the show for longer?
I'd have probably won. If I'd have known, well, if I'd have set my intentions, right? If I was like, I'm here to win, like, and I was serious about it, like, I'd have won. Or however it ended up, like I would have, with a partner, we would have won. But you don't know what you're walking into, and like my intention wasn't to like win the game. It was just to be there and compete for a charity or a good cause and meet some cool people, and that's what happened.
And you did.
I did.
So I think you'd be a hard person to beat, and what strikes me about you is not just your obvious physical capabilities, but your mental dexterity as well.
Appreciate that.
So let's go back.
It's a nice word too.
Thank you.
Dexterity.
Let's take it back to your sporting career. And I just wholly admitted I know nothing about football.
No.
But
no scrums.
Exactly. Scrums, rugby, whatever. But to be one of the best running backs of all time, and to have that attached to your name as you look back on your sporting career, how does that feel to you?
Oddly the same. as the champs versus stars thing. It's like I'm indifferent about it because it's like you say I'm one of the greatest of all time. It's kind of like subjective, right? So I've heard people say you're my favorite running back of all time. I've heard people say you're terrible, you're trash, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you build up this you become numb to opinions, right? And so over the years that just builds up to an average person going to work, and they go to work and they that's their craft, whether it's they work at a cash register or whether they're a lawyer or a doctor, whatever the case may be. Whatever you do, in my head I rationalized it like that. I likened it to that. It's just that's what I did. It's what I wanted to do as a child, to take care of my family. A lot of luck happened, a lot of hard work, and I got an opportunity to do that. So I don't really think of it as anything more than just I had an opportunity to provide. And that's basically all it is.
So I've been watching a lot of Last Chance U on Netflix. Have you seen the show?
I haven't. I heard about it, though.
I think you'll find it very interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And what strikes me is the pressure that young boys, in their teens are under from, disadvantaged backgrounds, the pressure upon them to provide. Mm-hmm. Was that something that you felt growing up?
Yeah.
Just mentioned.
100%.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Growing up in the circumstances I grew up in, it's kind of similar as that show. We were broke growing up.
Whereabouts did you grow up?
Albuquerque, New Mexico. Grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Not a lot of opportunity there at all. That's actually one of the worst states for education-wise. And so, and not blaming it on the system, but the school systems there aren't the best. On top of that, my mentality wasn't let's get this 4.0 and get to college. My mentality was seeing struggle at such a young age. I found my niche early, and so I was always looking for a way to escape the turmoil that was going on in my house. And I played football at pretty much all sports, but football at the age of 7. I don't know how I did, but I knew that it was going to be an avenue for me to attempt to get out of the circumstances I was in. And so growing up I just pursued that with everything in me, and I had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of mistakes, but it's kind of amazing looking back, seeing a 7-year-old kid's dream being played out as a 30-year-old man. It's kind of insane, actually. But I saw it through. I had a good support system, and I had, like I said, in order to be successful, you have to have some luck, and there was definitely some luck involved.
It's funny you mentioned that kind of knowing at the age of 7. I can remember probably being about the same age, maybe between 7 and 10, when I realised there wasn't anything really else for me other than sport. Right. I knew that I was a sportswoman. Would you say that's the same kind of thing for you?
No. I always loved football, but it was always something that was I never really identified with. I didn't like to be known as a football player. Even when I was in high school, I was always interested. Like I took theater class. I was always writing music. I was always into poetry, stuff like that. I always kept interests in other topics. I just didn't want to be defined by one thing. This world is such a big world, and I grew up in a small town. Moved to San Diego when I was in high school, and so just seeing different aspects of how other people grew up, it influenced me to keep that open mind. And so football was just sports in general was a part of my youth, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was like I couldn't never identify with it as like this is me. I'm a sporting guy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like only sportsmen and women can understand the idea or the notion that having a supreme athletic ability is both almost like a blessing and a curse. Is that something you'd agree with?
I think any kind of quote unquote gift, I guess, is like a blessing and a curse, because it's something that it's like anything else in life. Like it could become like an anchor and a sail is on the same boat, right? So it could be something that propels you forward, or it could be something that holds you back. 'Cause I know a lot of cats who fell in love with the prestige of what the position that they were in brought, and lost sight of future endeavors, and they're stuck in there. Like I see cats who are older than me still holding on to their glory days, and it's like, to me, that's the real loss. That's the real loss, is like you're not evolving. Like you're just stuck in this little moment in time where you were physically capable to do whatever this sport was. Because like if you think about it, sports are kind of lame, right? It's just like this. It's just like
peak for your own sport.
Oh yeah. I mean, think about it though. Like it's just like it's grown ups competing on a playground.
Yeah.
But we're just grown up. But I mean, there's a professionalism about it. Of course, I don't want to disrespect that aspect. I mean, I was one.
But let's be real. It's like literally run as fast as you can from A to B.
That's all that is.
Yeah.
Right. And so from that aspect, I always kept that in context. I never thought anything more of myself because I played a sport at any level. Because it was just, I'm putting the ball over a line. Like I'm not saving lives here.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like there's a certain amount of humility and grounding that was in you from a young age with regards to your football career, and you say where it could take you. You said it almost like a vessel that could take you to other places.
Right.
Where do you think you got that from? That kind of grounding?
I think it's just my upbringing. I think when you see, I had to grow up fast.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a lot of stuff I probably shouldn't have seen when I was young. And
How so?
I grew up in a domestically violent household. I grew up in a neighborhood that was, gang influenced. There's a lot of drugs in the community. I seen a lot of, like, you seen people OD and crazy shit. Like, can you cuss? I can cuss.
You can do what you like.
Okay, cool. Crazy shit like that. You see that growing up, and I mean, I can't tell you if it's nature or nurture, but it's one of those things where you see the things that you kind of marvel over as a kid, as far as like goals or things like that, isn't necessarily the crux of what makes you happy as a human being. And so like a lot of my issues growing up was money. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, but then I had a lot of friends that their parents had money, but they were also in turmoil too. So I put it together young that like there has to be some kind of balance. Mm-hmm. Like it's not all about one thing or the other. And so to bring it back to your question, like the things that I did for a living, I knew that wasn't going to fulfill me. That's why I never really attached to it, because I know a whole bunch of miserable millionaires. And so there has to be that, like, what's the disconnect? And the disconnect is that like we're all trying to figure out, not to get all super pseudo deep on you, but like we're all just trying to figure this shit out. Like nobody knows what we're doing. We're just here enjoying it as much as we can. So
I feel like there is depth to you. I feel like there is nothing but substance. Whenever, I see your posts on Instagram or whatever it is you do, I feel like there's always substance there. What is it that makes you different from what you saw growing up in Albuquerque?
I mean, I'm unsure. I don't try to, it's not cognizant. I'm not like, all right, let's be deep here, right? It's just like I actually hate Instagram, but I have to use it because it's such a good tool. You have a following, and like I have a podcast on there, and it's doing well. I had a music project; it did really well, and it's all social media. I didn't do a lot of promoting, so I don't like it because it's like this. Like we only show the best of ourselves. And like I always have jokes with my friends. It's like yo, when I die and you guys are at my funeral, like I don't want to hear all of this. Like yo, he's a really good guy. Like somebody can get up there and say, yo, he's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit sometimes. Like he's an asshole. He said the wrong things at the wrong. Like be real, because like the social media aspect of is actually changing our culture. It's having a huge impact on our culture, as you can see with like politics and things like that. So I try to be as honest as I can with it, and I'm not good at it because you have to post a lot in order to keep a big following, and so like I have to like remind myself. Yeah, if I take that back, if you're on in movies or television or in a sport, you don't have to. But if you're like trying to keep up your brand via social media, you do. And it's hard. So I'm always like trying to remind myself to post, and it's just not a thing that I like to do. But to bring it back to that's long-winded, but I'm not sure that I was any different in my neighborhood that I grew up in, other than I just saw the world differently. So like I just viewed it differently. I always looked at things in a little different light. I always saw myself as a global citizen rather than just communal and a part of a small community. I always saw myself as a part of this greater whole, and I think that kind of broadened my vision.
Like having the ability to affect people not just outside your community but on a more national scale.
Not necessarily affect people like that. More so, I think you have a responsibility to give the world the best of yourself. Does that make sense? So I think a lot of the times people get caught up in the rat race of America or whatever the case may be, of the society that we live in, and we rob ourselves of our potential because we're just trying to make ends meet, when the reality is you're robbing yourself, but you're also robbing everybody else. Because forever. But I mean, if you look at, like, think about how many, like, if you look at like somebody's story like Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs was a brilliant man, but he also was lucky enough to be born in a place where there was computers in his little school that he grew up in, when there wasn't computers readily available in school. So when you look at circumstances that people are born in, we're kind of victim to those. And so like when you get past a certain age where you can kind of influence your circumstances to the best of your ability, I think it's kind of your responsibility to give us that, because you're essentially right. How many Steve Jobs are out there working at McDonald's because they're just trying to make ends meet because they have a kid or whatever the case may be. They didn't have the tools
or the means.
Yeah, the means growing up, that the advantages that other people had. So I'm always looked at it like that. In essence, it's like I gotta tap all of my potential, because who knows like what I'm capable of, and so hopefully that is inspiring to somebody.
And talking about potential, I don't want to say transitioned, because I feel like music has probably been in your life more than any of us are probably even aware of.
For sure.
You've just released your first album, Flamingo and Gogh, of which I'm a very big fan.
Oh, we appreciate
and I've
that.
been sliding in the old DMs just to let you know. I'm probably like maybe a weekly to monthly basis.
Man, keep it coming, man. It's all good. I'll repost.
Hey. So hip hop is close to 50 years old? And this is the first time we've seen...
Really? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, if you think about who's in the game now and you think about how old they are.
It's crazy because like I'm a 90s kid, so I'm like, no, that was just last generation. But it's not. Wow.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
So, you know, with it being 50 years old, do you feel like there's a responsibility to the older artists to invest in the younger upcoming artists? Because something you just said just resonated with me. The ability to create something, whether you're a Steve Jobs, and the means to create something. Now, you're coming into, I guess, your music career later than most, because you've already, you know, had your career in football. And so let's assume that you now have the means to be an independent artist. Do you feel, therefore, there is this overarching responsibility of older artists to support and spur on and finance the projects of younger artists coming through?
Yes, but in a weird way. So hip hop's like the only genre where you can have like generational beef, right? And it's like because if you look at like people of my generation are like, man, these new niggas are like I can't they don't understand what real hip hop is, right? And I used to feel like that until I realized that what birthed hip hop was the voice of the voiceless. And so for me to try to control this genre that has spread worldwide is insane. It's asinine. And so I had to drop that. And so it's just like, you have to, more so than investing in youth, you just have to accept them, because the voice of the youth is always gonna drive pop culture, especially in hip hop. It has since its inception. really since before that. If you look at jazz and so pop culture in our communities have always driven pop culture. So
so do you feel like there's still a place for hierarchy in hip hop?
I don't think there can be, especially now with the internet. There can't be, because you'll look at, like, I find a new rapper every day that has millions of followers and I've never heard of them before. So like how, like, because there's no more control with labels, because all you need now is people saying that's dope. You get enough people saying that's dope, you have a career. And so you can't put it in a box anymore. And there can't be a hierarchy. Now it's like a free for all, and you can try to organize it as much as you want, but all you need now is an audience. Social media and the internet has changed everything.
Absolutely. Game changing. Now, you started writing when you were what, aged, is it 8 years old?
Yeah, like 7, 8, 9-ish.
And you were playing instruments as well?
No, we didn't have any pianos where I grew up.
Right. Of course you didn't.
Right. But no, I started probably like 27 when I started playing piano, and I just now started picking up the guitar. And so I play them both loosely. Piano I'm a little more comfortable with, but I don't want to disrespect any real musicians out there, but I can, not embarrass myself on
Give us a few keys.
Yeah, there you go.
In your recent Tidal series, you mentioned loneliness. Now, this was something that I kind of felt probably at the most poignant time in my sports career, in literally London 2012, Olympic year, the year of all years, the year to be alive, the year where, everything was culminating and leading up to. What was it in your life that led you to a point of loneliness?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think that's a great question.
Spill the tea.
I will spill the tea. I think in America we say beans.
Yep, those two.
Beans and tea. I think loneliness for myself, anyway, kind of stems from acceptance, self-acceptance. I think far too often we try to portray and we try to keep up with that portrayal of ourselves. And that's a lonely world. And I think, like, one of my favorite quotes is this. It's I forget who said it, but they said, like, in your 20s, you care about what everybody thinks about you. And in your 30s, you stop caring about what everybody thinks about you. And in your 40s, you realize nobody was actually thinking about you. And that's kind of and I guess I kind of matured a little faster in that sense, where it's like, I got that around late 20s, early 30s, where I was like, nobody sits at home and thinks, I wonder what Arian's doing, or Arian did this, or Arian did that, or Lulu did it. Like, nobody really cares. Like, you might be the topic of discussion at that point in time. You might be trending or whatever the case may be, but nobody actually cares. Like, it's a real rare thing for somebody to actually care about what you're doing in your life. So, to bring it back, that loneliness comes from, like, you're trying to keep up with this image, and that's I fell victim to that. I tried to keep up with this image that I portrayed. I wanted to be a family man. I wanted to be this. I wanted to be that. I wanted to be viewed as intelligent. I want to be viewed as all of this shit that really, at the end of the day, who you doing this for? Like, what are you doing this for? And that it's a cyclical thing, because you're just chasing your tail. You have no idea who or what you're doing it for, when, like, that self-vindication is really what matters at the end of the day. And no matter who you are, you could be whatever, Barack Obama, you could be Donald Trump, Mother Teresa, Gandhi. There are going to be people who hate you. Like, no matter, you could be the most peaceful human on earth, and somebody will be like, man, fuck that dude. That just is what it is.
Yep.
And so you have to be comfortable with the fact that you're not for everybody, and everybody's not for you.
Perfect.
And once you understand and accept that, like, it's like a weight that was lifted off myself. And what happened was, and I spilled beans. So what happened was, I was married, right? And so I was trying to, and I did that for the wrong reasons. I was trying to be the best father I could and not have my daughter fly back and forth across the pond. And that was in the height of my NFL career. Wrong thing to do. I wasn't nowhere near ready to be married. And so,
what age were you when you got married?
24, something like 24.
You Americans, you get married young.
Well, it was social pressures, right? So I had a daughter with a woman who was from Germany, and I would say I loved her, but I wasn't in love with her, right? So I had a lot of love for her, loved her, and so I convinced myself I was enough to be like, all right, let's get married to keep my daughter here in the States.
Right.
Like, and one of my best friends always says, sometimes doing the right thing ain't the right thing.
Yeah. And
so I ended up having another child with another woman on the side, and in the height of my career. So it was like on TMZ. It was like all the works. And so for a long time, I was like down on myself and listening to people say, and you're this and you're that. And after a while, I was like, man, fuck these people. Who are these people, right? And so, but that led me to understand that at the end of the day, all that matters is the first 2 rows in your funeral. Like, who are those people going to be? As long as to them you're a solid human being, and the rest of these people don't matter at all, because it's just opinions, and they don't really know. Nobody's going to sit down and have a conversation with you. And I feel like if you really did sit down and have a conversation with me, you understand I'm a good human being, and we're all just out here. But that's really what led me to the revelation of the peace that I have in my life now.
Deep.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to get that deep, but
well, no, I love it. And the weird thing that you were saying, I think the added pressure of when you are a sporting icon, and you are heralded by so many people in your country, it's almost like there are certain things you just can't do, or there are certain things that you just can't say. Right. And so I feel like you're almost like a dichotomy.
Yeah.
So you have almost this alter ego now, Bobby Feeno. Tell me about this alter ego.
Well, I don't like to define it as an alter ego per se, because it's still me. I think it's just I always view myself kind of like as a narrator of my own life, and I always wrote everything down that's happened to me in an artistic fashion, like it would be poetry or whatever the case may be. And it's just something that was always a part of me, and I've recorded thousands of tracks, like thousands, since I was a kid, and so I never got a chance to really put the love into the music I felt like that music deserves, because now music is so kind of disposable and accessible. Anybody can make an album if they want to, but to do it in a way that people who do it for a living respect it. That was my goal. And so that has happened. So people who I've admired for years, decades, have reached out to me unbeknownst to me and been like, yo, this is legit. And that's the most validation I can have. But so the music side of who I am is probably the bigger side of who I am. It's just as a kid growing up, that was more far-fetched to me than playing ball. So I went for the ball first.
Got you.
Yeah.
So Bobby Feeno is Arian Foster, or is Bobby Feeno different from Arian Foster?
No, they're the same. I just hate how Arian Foster sounds. I hate that name. I hate that name. That name is awful, man. I told my mom it did that too. I hate my name.
Would you ever change it?
We're actually thinking about that as a family.
I don't think you should.
Yeah, not Arian. Maybe not Arian, but Foster at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a slave.
What would it end up being?
We don't know. We're thinking about that, because it is a slave name. Not to be all super wokish, but like if you trace your lineage back,
then you got the name of your slave owner.
Yeah, the slave plantation owner. So it's like it's a really weird thing actually when you think about it. Like a lot of, I think, our communities in America, our Black communities in America, that our problem stems from identity crisis problems. It's like when you think about like pride in your heritage, like we don't really have that here. Like we just don't have it. Like it just stems from a lot of trauma, and
as opposed to homegrown roots.
Yeah. Like one of my boys, he's from East Africa and Uganda, and like he knows who his father was and his grandfather and their grandfather, and their village and their tribe traces back, and their name means something to them.
And there's almost a pride in that.
There's 100% of pride in that, and so it's like when you hear him talk about his family and his father, he's like, his last name is Lukanga. He's like, I'm a Lukanga, and like I can't be like I'm a Foster. Like what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, because we've seen all the other Fosters and they don't look like you.
They don't look like me.
Wicked. So I'm gonna talk you through a couple of the lyrics. I want a little breakdown. Some of my favourite tracks on the album, Lips, featuring Jack Freeman. Now, I know this is a favourite for the ladies out there. If you haven't heard it, it is fire. So, top of the table is possibly questionable infidelity. If I kissed you today, would I cross the line? So what's that about?
I wish I could take credit for that line, but I didn't write his. I didn't write his portion of it. He wrote that. So
well done, Jack.
Jack is the man. So I don't want to take credit.
Well done,
for
Jack.
that.
You're the bomb. I'll be coming at you some questions real soon.
For sure. Hit him up.
Okay. So I'm sitting inside your prison. Wishing I look at me all tongue-tied. I'm a hot mess. I'm sitting inside your prison, wishing I get convicted. Lock me up and throw away the key. Talk to me about that.
So I mean, that's basically saying it's just like your desire to want and to fall for. So that it was written with like in a lustful context, but also in a non-lustful context.
Do you know? Because I felt when I'm listening to the song, I feel like it's all about temptation. And I was thinking, what are you, 31? 31 years of growth and development. What's the one thing that you've learned about relationships?
That to just be open and honest, I don't want to sound so. I've preyed on a lot of women. I mean, it was all consensual. I'm not a rapist, but what I mean by that was I preyed on a lot of women. Is a lot of emotionally scarred women were my target when I was in the mindset of trying to get what I wanted to get, which was just sexual pleasure, right? And so that's usually the behavior of a narcissist. Is like you take advantage of people's vulnerabilities in order to execute. I mean, and we're kind of doing it to each other. That's what I noticed in my relationships, period. And so what I've learned was that you don't get a lot of real meaningful interactions until you really care enough about yourself to protect that energy. And I don't want to sound corny with energy, but it's a real thing to protect that what you're portraying and what you're giving off to people. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned in my trials.
Moving on. Okay. Amen. I'd rather pray to Jesus than Jesus. At least that Igga can get me some new Adidas.
Yeah.
Is this an kind of fuck you to religion, or is it an F you to like social commentary? Where's this one coming from?
It's more, Amen, the track is more, it's like a satirical poke at religion. It's not really a fuck you because, I mean, I've wavered back and forth on this. I think society needs religion for the simple fact that I don't think the majority of human beings spend enough time or have enough time to think about why they think about what they think about. So like I've literally thought myself into panic attacks about world problems, about religion, about philosophy. Like I just care about what's true and what's not true. And I don't think enough people do. And I used to hold that against people. Right. And so, this is just more like a poke fun at it in a satirical way, but done in what I feel is a clever way. Kind of taking the first half of the song is kind of taking the side of like a religious person, but kind of showing you the contradiction in believing in some of the things that I mean, just the logical inconsistencies in believing in that stuff. So that's basically the rundown of that song.
So it leads me to question right now on this very day in whatever month we're in 2018, where does your faith lie?
I don't think that faith is necessarily a good thing. Because I don't think there's any position that you can't take based on faith. Right. So if whether it's religiousness or religiosity, whatever that word is, or like evil behavior. Like what can you not justify on faith? I just don't think it's a reliable way to live life. And so I understand why people have faith, and I understand where religion comes from, and it's kind of that fear of the unknown. And I used to be a little bit more militant with it, but I get it now. I understand it. But as far as like right now, I just don't feel like faith is a very reliable way to traverse through life.
Interesting. Delicately put. I love it. Would you still pray to Jesus after all the tea he's been spilling recently?
I definitely wrote that in like 2015, I think. And so he wasn't really a part of the MAGA crowd.
It's politically vocal.
Yeah, but it's less about Kanye and more about the historical figure of Jesus. So it's like what I'm saying is basically I'd rather buy into something that's real tangible that I can touch, see, hear, taste, rather than something that is being told to me that's tangible.
Have you listened to the album, to Ye?
Yeah.
And did you like it?
I loved it. I loved it. Now I'm not like an advocate of what he says all the time, but I take it with a grain of salt, right? I know he said all these controversial things, but I'm like, why are we investing so much energy into what Kanye thinks about politics? I don't understand it. Like,
he's not a politician.
Well, he's openly said he doesn't read books. Yeah. So it's like, I think he's a music genius. I really do. I think he's brilliant, but that doesn't mean he's a scientist. That doesn't mean he's an economist.
Would you allow him to shoot you on a rocket up into space?
Him
just because he believed he could.
Exactly, right? So you just take it with a grain of salt. Like, he makes great music. Like, like the message, I might not agree with his music, but it's done in a sonically beautiful way. So it's like I just respect the music that he's giving me. I can separate the art from the artist, right? So I don't have to buy into his ideologies in order to enjoy the boom boom claps he makes, right?
Yeah. Producer Raf had a moment. He's kind of it's been an up and down year for producer Raf and his feelings about Kanye. I feel like we're coming to the end of it now, though. He's pulling through. Excellent.
I get it though. I get it. He was like a hero to us. He went from saying George Bush don't care about black people to vote for Donald Trump.
Exactly.
So that inconsistency I get. But what I'm saying is, either way, all that says is either way, you shouldn't be getting your political ideals from Kanye West. You just shouldn't. Like, accept what he gives us as far as music, and just don't take it any further than that.
Know thyself. Know thyself is the lesson from that one. Well. Suicide Note. So I feel like it's the last song on the album.
It is.
Oh, check me out, absolute fangirl. Couple of lines. I just want to connect. They just want to collect. So you touched upon this, I feel, earlier.
That's one of my favorite lines of the album, by the way.
It's dope.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was literally playing on my mind since you were talking about relationships earlier, and perhaps, seeking out people who were emotionally vulnerable, in an emotionally vulnerable place. One of the words I was thinking was, is there an element of a kind of almost a two-way exploitation?
Yeah.
There
100%.
And what is this in relation to relationships, or is this relation to what's this pertaining to?
That's not necessarily relationships like intimacy. That's more so about just personal relationships, and how in essence I'm trying to just connect with people. And when you're in a certain, like when I'm in a position that I was in or am in, when you have like what people view as value, which is money, right? So like, I'm a multi-millionaire. I've done things for my life that I'll never have to work again. Awesome.
Brat.
Nope. Okay, we stunt. But the thing about it is, you get pulled from all these different directions. And so when you say, I just want to connect, they just want to collect, is like a lot of the interactions you have are so disingenuous. And so that,
it's almost like an extraction.
Yeah, it takes from you. And what it did for me, and what I'm proactively trying to disassemble now, is my pessimism, right? It's because I see so much of it, and I it's hard for me to see, especially in this, I hate to say it, but like, it's in this country.
Are you pessimistic or are you a cynic? Because I feel like the two
Explain to me the difference.
So a cynic is a person who kind of sees the wood for the trees, sees things for as they are, and isn't afraid to kind of comment on them. However, because most people in life live in the dark, they can be seen as pessimistic. So they can be seen as always looking at things from a negative perspective, when a cynic is basically like, no, of course, like they're just doing it for the likes, or you know what I mean? You're just basically telling.
So can you be a cynic and not cynical?
If you stay silent.
Just telling you about it. Well, I think that's the juxtaposition I'm in right now. I'm trying to find that balance where, I see that. I see the ills of the world.
And you want to be. Do you want to be vocal about them, or are there things that you feel like?
I feel like it's irresponsible not to be vocal about them. How else are things going to change, right? So, I mean, that's basically what I've learned is if you want to change the world, change your world. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to clean up my world. But in order to clean up my world, I have to get over this. I used to call it pessimism, but when you put it like that, I guess I never really actively looked at the word pessimism. I just took it for the context. So pessimism,
because you don't strike me as a person who's surrounded by negativity. Like you talk about the things like, you know, the background and where you've come from. I feel like you're a person that sees good and opportunity. I don't think you see the negative in everything.
See, okay, so I guess I am a pessimist.
I think you see the real in everything.
Well, that's how can you unmarry those? How can you divorce those? How can you divorce the negative and the
cynical
flimsiness of this world? Like, how can you? So when I say like I just want to connect, they just want to collect. It's like we're speaking two different languages, but we're communicating with each other, and that's the disconnect. And that's the struggle I have with life right now.
There's a part of me that feels like that's also quite hopeful as well. So that's where I see the optimism. I feel like you're a person that is like, we'll call out the bullshit in the world in hope of better for not just, you know, your own life, but also the next generation of Arian Fosters or whatever their names in the future may be.
Can you hope for the best, but know that it's not going to come?
Always.
That's me. I hope it happens, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Oh, now you're just being pessimistic.
That's the issue I had. I don't see it. I don't see how, especially how self-indulging this generation is and what has spawned from it. It's like such a me looking like selfie like generation. And that's just the microcosm. Like would you look at it even in context of our structure of our society is capitalism. Like capitalism is the best known form of economic system we can come up with, but it's gonna have winners, it's gonna have losers, and it has to have losers in order for there to be winners. So it's hard for me to sit and say, yeah, everybody's gonna be great, but you're not. It's hard for me to talk to a group of kids and say, you're gonna be great. The percentages say that 70% of you are gonna be below average. That's tough for me to stomach.
That's a hard reality.
Yeah, and that's the shit I walk around with.
Is that something that we should be letting our kids know, though?
I let my kids know that, right? So, I mean, I don't let them. How is it
that we became effectively that 1%? Because in my mind, I'm kind of like, as a child, would I want to know that 75? You know what I mean? Would I want to be told that from the get-go?
Well, I don't
because I think we almost are told that.
Yeah. Well, see, you got to be careful with your children, the children's mind. So you don't want to sit here and convey to them, yo, like, percentage wise, you're probably not going to make it. Nah, what you want to do is you want to build up their confidence and everything that they're good at. You want to make them feel like they're the best at. Be realistic with them, but understand. Like, you know what actually changed my mind about this? And this is why people always like, oh, you're not going to change your mind via Twitter or that's bullshit. My mind was actually changed through a tweet one time, and it ended up being one of my good friends. Actually lives here in LA. And I didn't even know him at the time. I was just following him. And they were talking about, I think my daughter had drew some fish or something like that. And I was telling them how, like, no, I I keep it a buck with her. Like I was like, that's not what a fish looks like. Like here's a fish. Like try to draw what a fish looks like. And he's like, why are you trying to stifle her creativity? Like who are you to tell her what a fish looks like? And I was like, oh shit. That's 100% accurate. Like you can't stifle their creativity. Now you want to be realistic with them, but like in essence, like that when it's coming like to art or something like that, like don't stifle that. Like let them be imaginative. Like you're just putting your little box into like what you think a fish should look like. Like let her design whatever fish she wants. And that kind of changed my mind as far as like how to raise your child. Because I was gonna be super like, yo, this is it. You either work hard or you're broke. It is what it is. But it's just like, you have to cultivate their imagination or else there really is no hope for change. Right. Or else you're just going to breed a whole bunch of little workers.
Yeah. All drawing the same damn fish.
All drawing the same fish.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the things that you literally touched upon just briefly, Commodity Love. One of my favourite songs on the album, Watermelon Sunrise.
Watermelon Sunrise.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Again, it's fine.
I appreciate it.
It just makes me feel like summer.
That was the goal.
So that good. Was the goal. So you talk about commodity love. What do you think it is about society today that leads us to pursue these transactional relationships, whether that be between male, woman, do you know what I mean? Whether it be, personal relationships. What do you think that is?
When you have, when you're constantly searching for outside validation, that means you're not very self-confident in yourself. And so I think that's what a lot of this generation is. And what we try to do is we like to pretend. I'll read it after this. It's one of my favorite things I've written, actually.
Yeah.
So we like to pretend that we have it together, knowing we don't. And knowing, I'll just read it. I'll just read it. I wrote, and it's actually writing lines crazy that you. So it said, it's like a little, I guess like a freestyle poem. I don't know whatever you want to call it.
Hit me with it. I'm ready.
I got you. So it says, I'm afraid of myself. I'm afraid I'm exactly. I'm gonna start over. I'm afraid of myself. I'm afraid I'm exactly what I hate about this place. So the times I'm unsure, I pretend, and I can pretend with the best of them. And I know they know I'm pretending because they're pretending too. I pretend to like things. I pretend to love things. I pretend to understand. I can't remember the day I stopped being a kid. Like what day did sex make me more happy than my imagination? Back when bitches had cooties. But bitches never had cooties because when bitches had cooties, bitches weren't bitches. We just played in forever until the bell rung. That's it. I want to live in forever because forever's only for a while. So like I wrote
Wicked.
That. I appreciate it.
Oh my God.
I wrote that shit.
Thank you.
At like 4 a.m. one night because I couldn't get over I was sitting there. It was like recent. It was like 2 months ago actually. And I was texting one of my best friends. Like he was in New Jersey and I was like waking him up. I was like, yo, because he's like so self-centered, but not in that way. He's like a centered human being. Like he's centered himself.
Yeah.
And I was just hitting him with question after question. I was just up at night because I couldn't get over the fact of how selfish of a human being I was. And so I'm always trying to attack those angles. And to bring it back to your point is we're so self-absorbed, but we don't love ourselves enough to be satisfied with the human beings that we are. So we seek outside attention. We seek outside validation. And that shit is slowly killing us. It's in my opinion anyway. I don't have it all figured out, but that's just how I view the world. And so like shit like there's like, it's pretending. Like we all pretend. Like I pretend. But it's just like admitting you pretend is probably taboo. But it's honesty. And I think the more you admit it, the more you can not pretend.
There's something about that made me really feel, it took me kind of back, I guess, to images of childhood and just being free. And I was just like, oh my gosh. It made me want to just go play in the playground.
That's exactly.
Should we do that after this? Let's just go hit the swing.
Shit outside.
Let's just go hit the swing.
Okay, let's hit it
Stop
outside.
it.
Okay.
We'll hit the swing.
It's hot as hell though.
Done. Deep. What's your favourite song on the album? And tell me why.
Okay. I think my favourite song, I got two. So it's either Got It or Wine Bottles and Cheese. And
interesting. Yeah. Wine Bottles and Cheese is very jazzy.
It's super jazzy. The reason why I love that one, and it's because no hip hop is being made like that, and so it's fusing like really soulful jazz instrumentation. Like those are real musicians that played that, like
strings. And
yeah,
everything.
no samples, strings, horns, pianos, drums. It was all real. But it's kind of being told as this like this struggle between prestige and not being where you want to be in life, and kind of going back and forth, and then having this like aha moment, like when you reach the top of the mountain and realize like, oh shit, there is no there. Like that's what that feeling is like. But then Got It is more kind of the same, but like towards the end when the beat switches up, which is one of my favorite transitions ever. It's really personal, so it's just like really telling you how I feel about the situations that I've been through.
Deep. One of the things you mentioned on the album is I'm coming after Jay, man, there's nothing I fear.
Yeah.
Lay the smack down. Has Jay heard the album?
I think he has, and the reason why I think he has is because I had to get Jay-Z sample cleared. We used his voice on a song called "A Friend, a Fan, a Kid," and
and Kanye as well.
Yeah, Kanye. So both of them had to clear it, and so I don't know their clearing processes, but that's actually how we got hooked up with Tidal. Is they heard it and they said, "Hey, we want to be a part of the rollout," and so they helped us roll it out. So
amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty dope. So I hope he did.
Beautiful. I'm sure he has. I mean, I'm sure he has.
That's dope.
What was I going to say? So that kind of fearlessness to transition from the sporting world over into the music world and be out there and just say, do you know what? There's nothing I fear here. It's all on the table. Where does that come from? That feeling with your music, that confidence?
I think it's in the same category as the confidence I had on the football field. I remember vividly having this thought of when I was first stepping on the field as a rookie, and I saw all these Pro Bowlers, and I saw all these dudes that I used to watch growing up, or in college I used to watch them, like, holy shit, that's so and so. And I remember thinking they got to put their pants on one leg at a time, just like I do. And I don't know what they were doing this off season, but I was working my ass off. Like I was up 5:30 in the morning, training till 7:30 at night. Like there's nothing that they're doing that I'm not doing. So I'm confident in what I can do. And so it's the same thing with my music. It's I understand music. I'm a student of this shit. I've loved it since I was a child. I've been writing since I was a child. So I understand. I studied. I understand iambic pentameter. I know all these different flows. I get what people are doing. I understand what you're trying to convey. And so I've been working on my pen since I was a kid. And so when I put that together, mixed with the musicianship that I've been able to work with and the ideas that I have, I just feel like I can compete with you. It's just about marketing at this point. That's just how I feel.
It's so interesting to me because I must admit, on the days when I felt my very strongest in battle, in hurdling, in sprinting, is the day I felt the most prepared. Because I look back at my preparation and I'm like, yeah, there's nothing I could have done better. I might have been ill for a couple of days, but in terms of me putting my socks on, going to work every day, all the work is done. Today's literally just about execution. Yeah,
I'm thinking that all the time, especially in football. I used to think that all the time. Like, I remember vividly thinking this one day. We were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers on a Sunday night, and my body was just sore, and I was like, I didn't feel like I mentally had it because I was just exhausted from that season. And we had like a stretch where I was just getting the ball a lot, and we had this stretch, and I was just like exhausted. But I remember thinking like, my preparation will take me through this game, and I had a great game. And just the rest, that's all training is. Training is just training your body for repetition and to be second nature. That's all it is. And so it's like it's second nature. It comes like if you put in the work, the results will come. It's really just a matter if you trust the process enough to weather the storm. Yeah, it's a little harder in like music though, because it's a little more subjective. And
how so?
In football or track, if you run a certain time, if you run fast enough, that's objectively verifiable. Like, it is what it is. Like, I'm gonna outrun you. Like, that's just objective. You're the best in the field. Whereas music is, I feel like I had one of the best albums of the year in hip hop.
I would definitely agree.
I appreciate that. But, and it's not, I'm not just saying that because it was mine, but like it took around 3 years to create and put together. Like, that Wine Bottles and Cheese song probably went through like 6 or 7 different transformations. So like, there's so much care and love that went into it. But that's why I'm so confident about it, is because I understand the work I put in. But is the public gonna feel like that, right? So it's more of a subjective taste. And so I feel like the grind is the same, but it's just a longer wait, because I feel like people, if you give it a chance, you're like, okay, this is dope, but they want to say, okay, well, can you do it again? And then can you, after a while, it'll become undeniable, and that's where your fan base grows. Like, I have a small fan base. I can tour. I'm about to try to go on tour, like a small little tour. And
when
like,
are you starting?
We're still up. It's up in the air right now, but we're looking around Thanksgiving. We're trying to do that. But that's small. Like, I'm not gonna sell out no stadiums right now. Like, nobody believes in it, right? And so, but that's where that grind comes in. Is just like, you continually believe in yourself until, like, if you don't, who will, right? So you keep pushing until you make people believe. I
feel like your album is literally like a diamond in the rough. It's literally one of those things you find and you're like, how do I not know about this?
I appreciate it.
And when you do know about it, you literally cannot put it down. I remember buying the album and I was just like, oh, just be supportive or whatever, you know what I mean? We did a show together, you know what I mean? I got you, brother. Go buy yourself a little sleigh hat, you know what I mean? And then I'm like putting this on and my boyfriend's like, who's that? I'm like, it's Arian. He's like, Arian here. I'm like, the guy's just on the show. And I was just like, he's like, play that track again. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's love, man.
It was like,
that's love.
Like, I cannot, like, I'm a fan. It's as simple.
No, that's so much love. And the reason why I respect it so much is because it's like, in order to like wow people in my position, it has to be 20 times better than anybody else that's coming out with things. Because it's like, okay, you used to play ball. Of course you're going to make music. Everybody makes music. But in order to change somebody's mind, it has to be like sonically wowing. Like, it really does. And so I understand that. And so that's why, like, when people say like, yo, like, you blew my mind, because the expectation was probably like, this is going to be probably shit.
Yeah.
But it's just not. And that's what I love about it. Is like, if anybody gives it an honest listen, so it's good music, man. One
of the things I remember saying to my friend was, you would have never have known that he'd played football.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because football, like, you know, music like football is something to be, you know, very few people can just pop up and be excellent at it.
Right.
And this is clearly something that you have grafted at and perfected and everything. Do you know what I mean? What you have is a beautiful finished product that is easily in the top 5.
I appreciate
easily
it. Man, that's love. Like, it means a lot. Like, it really does. Because I mean, the journey is like, I have songs that I'm not proud of. Like, growing up, they're fucking awful.
Fuck, they didn't make it.
they're awful. Like, growing up, I have a lot of shit. Like, you're just trying to find yourself as an artist. And how I knew I was like, okay, it's time to release a project, was when, you know, you anytime you do anything that you love, like, you pass it to your inner circle, right? Whether it's music or whatever the case may be, your drawings or whatever, you're like, pass it to your inner circle, and everybody's like, oh, this is dope, man, it's cool, awesome. And then as the years went and I'm passing it to my inner circle, like, the reaction started to change. It started to go from, oh, this is cool, man, to like, yo, I will bump this. Like, if you did it or if you didn't do it, I would bump this. So that kind of changed my mind to like, well, maybe people need to hear this, man.
Was there at any point did you feel any pressure at any point to kind of conform to the type of music we're hearing right now? Trap music, mumble rap?
No. I'll never like mumble rap as far as like get it with the auto tune, and like, that's just not my style. Like, I don't, and I used to like loathe it. I used to hate it, right? I used to hate it. But like, we were having a conversation earlier, it's like, you can't control where hip hop is growing to, and it's just it's a genre. Like, great music, in my opinion, is still being made, and that music might not be for me, but it's like, who am I to judge what music is, right? But no, I never felt any pressure to conform. I think this next project, I definitely want to stretch and see what I can do artistically. because I think this project, my goal was like, let me show people I can actually rap, but not like corny rap. I have something to say. I can structure words in a way that's poetic. Now I want to stretch a little bit more artistically and really show you my side of myself. So I'm excited about this next project that we're starting to work on.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah,
so when we met, you were playing for the Arian Foster Family Foundation. Tell me a little about your charity and how you set it up.
That charity is what we really aim to do is a couple specific goals. Is we want to teach financial literacy to kids in inner city neighborhoods, and we also want to help out struggling families as much as we can. And we also want to provide healthy food options to kids in food deserts or in inner city neighborhoods that don't really have access to those foods. So we work on a lot of those.
Is there anywhere in particular that you visited that's in a particularly dire need?
Well, if you look in most major cities in America, there are things called food deserts where neighborhoods aren't necessarily surrounded by grocery stores with good food. So there's like, they just have gas stations with snacks and things like that.
Packaged, everything's packaged.
And so so I partner with a lot of companies that try to get snacks that are healthy to kids. And it's not necessarily trying to play like this moral hierarchy of you should eat better, but it's just like giving kids options, because there are options out there. Trying to work with school districts to change the lunch menus, things like that. We're a small organization, but you know we've done a lot of good. Like when one of the things I'm most proud of is like when that Black Panther movie came out. I thought that was so important for young Black kids to see themselves represented in a superhero. I never saw that growing up. Closest thing we had, I think, was Spawn, and that wasn't like a superhero movie.
Not the same thing.
Or Meteor Man, and I thought that was important to see themselves represented in a major motion picture like that. And it was a powerful, impactful movie. And as you saw, I think it did like $1 billion in the box office or something like that. And it's like and overseas, it's like a 700 or 800 or something like that. So it's doing way more than anybody expected it to. And so what we did, we bought out 2 movie theaters and invited a whole bunch of young Black kids, middle school, high school kids to come see the movie just together and feel that empowerment. I thought that was important. So like we do.
How did they react? Were you there?
Yeah, I was there. We had a whole video and everything. I don't think we put it out though, but yeah, it was dope, man. Just to see the smiles on their faces and just to see, it's just, to them it's normal. I had a Black president. I grew up,
Right.
you know, I have.
Do you think they know how special it is?
I don't think, maybe not till they're older. I mean, maybe some of them, but like, I remember watching Barack Obama get elected, and while I wasn't as emotionally invested in it, I understood the impactfulness of the moment.
Right.
And whether I agree with his policies or not, or whoever, it's not even about that. It's about now young Black kids. There's no more barrier, there's no more ceiling. And those are the kinds of things people are fighting for now, is to eradicate those barriers and ceilings. And there's progression. I know social media can make it seem like the world is falling, but if you look at high school dropout rates are down, teen pregnancy is down, drug usage is down, all major categories of like life expectancy is up. So it's like the world is actually progressing. So there's a lot to be fought for, but there's also a lot to be proud of that we've achieved.
Indeed. Talking about bringing barriers down, we're going to enter into the last part of our show, which is called All That and a Bag of Limes. We don't have any limes.
Right.
What I do have are a few quick fire questions.
Shoot.
So, most underrated and most overrated in the rap game?
Oh man.
Wait.
Most overrated? Yeah, that's tough. I'm gonna say this like really reluctantly, because I still love him. I just don't think his music aged well, and this is merely opinion. I still think he's one of the greatest to ever do it. But Eminem to me is kind of overrated, and I think he was in my top 5. But when I double back on his catalog, his music just doesn't age well to me. Like, I still respect what he did. I think he's a dope lyricist. I think his subject content was a little monotone. But I think when he wanted to, he could pin with the best of them. So he's still one of my favorite lyricists. I just think he's a little overrated.
Got you.
Most underrated by far is a dude named Isaiah Rashad. Isaiah Rashad. He's on TDE. He's underneath Kendrick Lamar. He's one of the best out. Period.
How old is he?
He's like in my time. How old is he? He's probably like 25, 26. He's like one of my favorite out. Period. And of all time, though.
You heard it here first.
Greatness.
Snog, marry, avoid. This is basically like the English version of fuck, marry, kill.
Okay.
Snog.
Like,
so I have to, when I do this in English, like I have to explain the categories. Snog is like kiss. Marry is obviously marry, and avoid is swerve.
Snog. Say it one more time.
Snog,
marry, swerve.
Yeah.
Snog, marry, swerve. Okay.
So all female rappers.
Wait, what's snog again?
Snog is kiss.
Kiss. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, kiss. So we've got Cardi B. Nicki. Little Mama.
All right.
Snog.
We know Lil Mama. This ain't fair. All right. That's tough. All right. I'm damn. I'm a snog is kiss.
Yep. French kiss.
Oh, shit. I'm definitely in a relationship. Snog is, I'm gonna have to go with Cardi.
Yep.
I love Cardi B. I'm gonna marry Lil Mama. That's my dog.
Aww.
And then I'm gonna swerve Nicki.
Any particular reason?
I mean, you can't. One of them got to be swerved.
One's got to be swerved.
Against Nicki.
Okay. On another day, another time, maybe.
Lil Mama,
you know what I mean?
Man.
Maybe. So you're stranded on a desert island. One hip hop album. You've got yourself. Do you remember the little Sony Discman?
Yeah.
You've got 2 batteries, one Sony Discman, a pair of clapped out headphones, and one CD.
That's unfortunate.
One hip hop CD. Which one's it going to be?
That's super unfortunate, man. Whew. You know, it's gonna have to be Kanye West Graduation.
Boom.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
That's so tough, though. Is it like Graduation, Late Registration, All Eyes on Me, Pac, Machiavelli? That's tough.
You did it though.
Yeah.
Okay. If you had to have one on your podcast, Tekashi 6ix9ine. Is it 6ix9ine or 69?
Yeah. I'm unsure.
Or Bad Barbie.
Oh, I would go with Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Yeah?
No question.
Got you. And what questions would you ask him? What would be the first thing you want to get straight out of the way?
Well, I think he's at least talented. Bad Barbie, I think she's not talented. But she's just not for me, maybe. But I think what I would ask him is, well, it's not necessarily ask him. I would just like to just banter with him because I know what he's doing. He's just trolling, and he's doing it in a way. He's capitalized off this generation's attention span, and so he really knows how to manipulate that, and he's doing a great job for himself. And so, more than anything, I would just try to get him to understand that the street life that you glorify. One, we all understand that you're not a gangster. Like, if you've ever met a street cat, like, that ain't you. 2, it's not even cool to be that, honestly. Like, I remember thinking it used to be as well. And so it's not cool to be the toughest. It's not advantageous for anybody. Your career. I mean, you saw the kind of trouble. I mean, I don't know if it's staged or not, but like, you saw the kind of trouble that can happen. Like, you end up putting a target on your chest for no reason. Hip hop is a scary game in that essence, where the things you say can actually put your life or the people you love life in jeopardy. So, I mean, continue what you're doing as far as promoting your music, because you have the platform now, so you don't no more need for the antics. I know that you don't really need it anymore. So go just get your money, save your money, watch the people that are around you. So I would just try to give them some little OG life advice.
Straight up. Wicked.
Yeah.
Talking about life advice, what is next for you? So you say there's potential tour coming up. You're working on a new music project. What else are we to expect from you in the next 6 to 9 months?
Yeah, I mean, the podcast is continuously
Now
growing.
what pod?
Yeah, you got to come on.
Yeah, I will be. I'll be
right.
coming on.
All right.
Oh yeah, to lay the SmackDown.
For sure.
I'll be in the hot seat this time.
Yeah, so that's growing. I got some film things that I'm working on, and hopefully some of these auditions fall through. That's a slow grind. But yeah, man, just enjoying and creating. I think that's my life. I'm dabbling. I'm doing my best to stay consistent in my math classes. But I'm just out of town so much, it's hard to stay consistent. But yeah, I'm still in love with science and physics, and so I'm still going to pursue that. It's just a matter of getting the time to do so.
Get it, brother.
Trying to do it, man.
Arian, thank you so much for joining us on Slay Sunday. If you haven't heard it, Flamingo and Cove is fire. So good.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the love always.
Thank you so much.
Yes, man. My pleasure.